back to the employment of older workers, as we have discussed already earlier this day. And it remains important as aging takes place on a daily basis, so it remains a topic that sticks with us quite long. My research topic is, or for this paper at least, which is part of a bigger research proposal which I'm currently developing, is on the risks of unused potential, the unemployed older workers. And the very reason why I chose the unemployed older workers is because of the television program which was broadcasted, I think, mid-October in the Netherlands. And it focused on older unemployed workers, which in this specific case were 50 plus. But the main problem which came out of this television broadcasting was that most of the people were not invited to any job interview, so they had no labour market access. And that is a big problem for those who are long-term unemployed. So the paper mainly addresses the difficulties for older workers to remain attractive, attractive workers, and to make successful transitions from long-term unemployment or unemployment more in general to more gainful employment once they lose their job. But the most striking feature when looking more in depth into the unemployment of older workers was, for me, that if you look at the statistics, that long-term unemployment already begins at the age of 45, which was already mentioned by our Portuguese colleague Teresa. And one of the statements of our Minister of Labour and Social Affairs, Minister Ascher, whose mother has been a Labour law professor, which is quite funny, said, well, it's a tough problem, but what can I do, is maybe a statement. So I should talk to the employers, but the employers say, well, we should do anything about that, but nothing happens thereafter. So the main age group which is unemployed, let's start with the unemployment facts in general. 40% of the people who are unemployed in the Netherlands are long-term unemployed. So they are unemployed for more than 1 year. And that's quite a big number, I would say. And this is much more shocking. 80% of these long-term unemployed are older than 45. And if being 45, you still have at least 20 years to go and have to work, because that's the law. And pensionable age is increasing. And for my age, it's not even fixed when I would be perhaps able to retire if I can retire at all. So in that sense, it's a quite large group, and I think it's quite important also to focus on this age group, not only focusing on those who are almost 60, 60 plus, or the younger ones, but also on this core group of 45 plus people. There are two leading themes at European level that play a role in this context, and they're already mentioned before. The Europe 2020 strategy has two main aims in this context, namely to increase the overall labour participation, so more people need to work and they need to participate, and thus to pay taxes, social security contributions, because that helps also to make pension and social security systems more sustainable. And the sustainability part is the second main aim. And that long-term unemployed is very important, has been seen by the Employment and Social Policy Ministers in the APSO Council, who reached on 7 December this year an agreement on the recommendation on long-term unemployment, which you already mentioned before. And this shows the urgency of the problem of long-term unemployed people. And one of the instruments that play an important role, and Eduardo Oliver has mentioned that, is flexicurity. So I just also want part of the chapter on flexicurity. As to the analytical framework, it is clear that unemployment, and even more so long-term unemployment, endangers not only the Europe 2020 goal to increase labour market participation, but of course also the sustainability of the pension and social security systems. And following the television program I referred to earlier, one of the main problems is that unemployed older workers are not allowed to have access to the labour market because they were not invited to a job interview. So by not being able to actively participate in the labour market, this entails a variety of risks for various actors involved. Think of member states, they have to accommodate to the EU goals. Employers face the risk because in the Netherlands you have one rule that if you become sick, the employer has to pay for at least 2 years of your income during sickness. And so it's a big risk for employers to hire older workers in case they become sick. And of course for the employee, because being unemployed means income loss. And even if they become a job, it's mostly on a flexible, atypical basis, after which they become unemployed again. So there's a kind of continuous decrease of income loss, you might say. And as Martha Feynman, who is a professor at Emory Law School in the United States, has put it, there's a little risk of being sued for failure to hire, but more risks of a lawsuit for discriminatory action or termination. So what can you do when somebody has no access to the labour market? So what I tried to combine in this paper was, and it is inspired partly by Piera's risk perspective and partly by Stuart, who emphasized the need on active labour market policies during our Oxford meeting, which I remember hopefully correctly. So I tried to combine two themes, and one is the capability approach, and I draw very much on Simon Deakin's work for that. And I combined it with a risk perspective. So when I refer to the capability approach, when saying that labour market access, I think that if you see labour market access seen as a capability, that is very interesting because then you really need to think about measures not only legal measures, but measures that could help to provide labour market access for these unemployed people. And while markets are capability-enhancing institutions, providing opportunities for social and economic participation, access to the labour market depends on a set of prior conditions that are institutional and to some degree also legal in nature. Think of the 2-year sickness pay in the Netherlands. That would be a big burden for employers to hire someone. So combining the capabilities approach with a risk perspective comes in because there are many risks, as I said, already involved in case the EU's goals to make the pension and social security systems more sustainable. And for that to occur, we need to increase the labour market participation. But if people will not have access to the labour market, they face the risk of being unemployed, often leading to what I said, income loss and increased flexible work. And the increase in flexible work puts also at risk the sustainability of the pension and social security system because of the fluctuations it may cause. So the difficulty with unemployment is that it has much more far-reaching effects than just income loss. It is also, as Amartya Sen writes, it can cause psychological harm, loss of work motivation, skill and self-confidence, disruption of family relations, or social exclusions, or there are many other factors besides income loss which can be repaired or covered by the law that may occur in combination with unemployment. So what I did was to see the various risks that are involved when being unemployed as having an impact on an individual's capability, say labour market access. So I combined and tried to solve the risk as impairing the labour market access of these people. So when I looked into the Netherlands as a kind of case study, how does the Netherlands deal with unemployed older workers, and the example might say, well, not much. There are some legal and policy measures that address, in the first place, an increase in labour market participation. There is a kind of mobility bonus which means a deduction on Social Security contributions for those who are 56 and plus. So it's not the 45 age group, but you have to be 56 or older. There's a kind of probationary replacement. There's a 50-plus workers' action plan, empowering job seekers and approaching employers to employ older workers. There are awareness meetings and information sessions. And there's enriching unemployment insurance to train older unemployed workers or job seekers. This concerns not only those having not reached pensionable age, but in parallel, the Dutch government has adopted some measures to make it more attractive to hire pensioned workers. And in the end, this means that a kind of labor law light system is created because it becomes cheaper for employers to hire pensioned workers as the rules on fixed-term employments are more relaxed. No contributions are need to pay anymore. No transitional allowance, which replaces the severance pay in the Netherlands, must be paid if you have reached pensionable age. So many measures that make it much cheaper, or not much, but it may make it cheaper for employers to hire pensioned workers. Oh, and of course the sickness. Normally it's 2 years, but for pensioned workers it's just 13 weeks. So you see, that's kind of beneficial for this perhaps small group, but it is a group, pensioned workers, who might be hired because they are cheaper. So we might have a problem here with younger, older workers being displaced or replaced by pensioned workers, and think of the younger workers who are even younger than the 45-plus group. So, and besides increasing labour market participation rates, the government also just improving the functioning of the labour market, and Nicola already said that earlier. We have a new dismissal law protection in the Netherlands, whose main aim was to change the legal position of the flexible workers and to also amend unemployment regulations, as the government found out that there was a kind of improper use in flexible or more atypical work relations, and it aims at people getting a permanent contract sooner than before. And it must be noted that 25% at least of the Dutch labour force is not in normal permanent employment. So we have 1/4 of the labour force that is not, that is on a kind of atypical or self-employed basis. Within this dismissal law protection, we now have a transitional allowance, which aims at, and it sounds somewhat fancy, at facilitating from work to work transitions. And it might be a good initiative, of course, but it depends on how it will work or develop in the next 1, 2, 3 years, as the rule is adopted in July, I think, so that's a kind of recent rule. And this transitional allowance applies to workers who have at least for 2 years been employed with the employer, so you need these 2 years. Note, however, that the new rules on fixed-term employment start to count as of 2 years. So the first 2 years may be on a fixed-term basis, but as of the 25th month, in fact, then just as of that stage, you need to pay the transitional allowance. So what happens sometimes, now already in practice, that you get a contract for 7, 8 months, and then people get kicked out, so that employers don't need to pay the transitional allowance. The amount is fixed at 75,000 euros. And employers may reduce the total amount in the end if they can prove that they have invested during their employment relationship in the employee's employability. So there might be some kind of gap to reduce the amount in the end. And employees may use the money as they wish, so they even can, sarcastically said, fly a caravan. So it's for their own choice how they spend the money. Another thing within the improvement of the functioning of the labour market has been a reduction in the unemployment benefits from 36 to 24 months. And while being registered as a job seeker, the employment insurance agency helps with finding work. But along with reducing the duration of the unemployment benefit scheme, also the definition of what can be considered as suitable work has been changed. So any type of work after 6 months being unemployed can be considered as suitable, no matter what kind of function you have, whether it's lower paid, but after 6 months you have to accept almost any type of work that is offered. And the increased flexibility is not only problematic in terms of accruing unemployment benefits, but also in terms of benefiting from unemployment as to the duration it is paid. So it's generally problematic, this whole flexibilization or segmentation of the labour market in relation to all the workers, the dismissal law protection, so it's all related to each other. So I'm coming to the conclusion or some concluding remarks. What I tried to show in my paper is that there are many potential risks that may affect individuals' capability in having labour market access. So while member states, with a view to the EU's goals, need to control their public expenditure by increasing labour market participation rates, and thus making pension and social security systems more sustainable, employers, similarly, are concerned with the additional costs they may face when hiring older workers. Employers therefore seem reluctant due to the prejudices that still exist to employ older workers. But as long as employers decide whom to employ, unemployed older workers have no substantive choice in whether they are able to participate or not in the labour market. Thus, their capability in having labour market access is largely impaired, likely to reinforce that the risks depicted will increasingly materialize. Thank you.